Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about mental illness, comparing the countries Australia and South Korea. Joining me with Hugo and Anna. What is mental illness? Mental illness is a health problem that significantly affects how a person feels, thinks, behaves, and how they interact with other people. It is diagnosed according to standardized criteria. The term mental disorder is also used to refer to these health problems. 1 in 5 Australians have a mental illness, and here are 5 signs that you have a mental illness: long-lasting sadness or irritability, extremely high and low moods, excessive fear, worry, or anxiety, social withdrawal, and dramatic changes in eating or sleeping habits. If you have any of these, it is advised that you go see a doctor immediately. Now, we're going to give some depression facts and figures. Depression has high lifetime prevalence. 1 in 7 Australians will experience depression in their lifetime. Depression has the third highest burden of all diseases in Australia, 13%, and also third globally. Burden of disease refers to the total impact that a disease measured by financial cost, mortality, morbidity, which is death, and other indicators. It is often expressed as a number of years of life lost due to ill health, disability, or early death. In addition, depression is the number 1 cause of non-fatal disability in Australia, 23%. This means that on average, people with depression live with this disability for a higher number of years than people suffering from other non-fatal diseases such as hearing loss and dementia. Dementia meaning you forget stuff. The World Health Organization estimates that depression will be the number 1 health concern in both the developed and developing nations in 2030, meaning it's a very, very big deal. Mental illness in Australia is quite a prominent issue. Mental illness is very common. 1 in 5 Australians, aged 16 to 85, experience a mental illness in any given year. The most common mental illnesses are depression, anxiety, and substance use disorder. These 3 types of mental illnesses often occur in combination. For example, depression. I skipped a line. For example, a person with an anxiety disorder could also develop depression, or a person with depression might misuse alcohol or other drugs in an effort to self-medicate, which is not good. Of the 20% of Australians with a mental illness disorder, 11.5% have 1 disorder, 8.5% have 2 or more disorders, and almost half, 45% of Australians, will experience a mental illness in their lifetime, which is a lot. The onset of mental illness is typically around mid to late adolescence, and Australian youth 18 to 24 years old are usually quite vulnerable. Something that is quite a big issue in Australia is that 54% of people with mental illness do not access any treatment. This is worsened by delayed treatment due to serious problems in detection of the mental illness and accurate diagnosis. The proportion of people with mental illness accessing treatment is half that of the people with physical disorders. In Australia, around 65,000 people attempt to take their own lives, majority of that being women, which is interesting because that is contrasting with more men actually taking their own lives successfully. Attempted suicide is also an important issue, with estimates in Australia that 65,000 people a year attempt to take their own lives. And interestingly, the majority of that being women.
South Korea is in a similar situation that men are far more likely to commit suicide than women. They also have similar numbers in the cases of depression and cases of other mental illnesses. However, suicide rates are far more higher in South Korea. This is due to the problem that no one talks about how they feel and no one feels comfortable with confronting their problems in the country of South Korea.
Every day, at least 6 Australians die from suicide, and a further 30 people will attempt to take their lives. Luckily, they will not die because they will be saved. In Australia, which is the same as in South Korea, between ages 25 to 44, the leading cause of death is suicide, not car crashes. Even in Australia, where it's really hot, suicide's still higher than skin cancer, which is pretty crazy if you think about it. Isn't it, Anna?
Yeah.
Men are at greatest risk of suicide, but least likely to seek help. This is because it's not part of the culture to be vulnerable as a man. You want to be strong.
So, what are 3 actions that could be taken to reduce mental illness in both Australia and South Korea? The first and possibly most important action that must be taken to reduce mental illness and suicide rates in both of these countries is making sure that people accept that mental illness is a huge issue and that people feel comfortable about talking about it. The government needs to start using advertising and media to promote the idea of openly talking about mental health.
The second way to prevent suicide rates in both South Korea and Australia is to make the community in both countries more aware and educate the kids early on about how mental illness can develop and what effects it can have on you. That's fine. That's good.
Alright,
And
what
then just
am
be
I
like,
saying?
programs should be put into place.
Oh yeah, okay. I can cut it in. Programs should be put into place in schools, universities, and workplaces that will help educate people on this issue and make them feel more comfortable around it.
Lastly, make sure you check in with your loved ones to see if they are okay, and if they are not, advise them to seek help.
With these 3 actions being put into place, we can help reduce the growing problem of mental illness in both South Korea and Australia. We've been Hugo,
Charlie.
Anna.
and we're signing out.
I'm definitely putting that in.